In my family, I've always been the responsible one, despite being the older sister. I'm Olivia, 32, and work as a pediatric nurse at a busy hospital in the city. The pay is decent but not exceptional, enough to cover my expenses and still help my younger sister, Penelope. Penelope is 26 and works as a social media influencer, focusing on luxury lifestyle content. Her income is wildly inconsistent, despite having over 100,000 followers on social media. When she can't make ends meet, which is often, I'm her financial safety net. Our parents, Walter and Helen, live in an upscale neighborhood about 20 minutes from both of us. They're in their 60s and have always favored Penelope. I noticed this pattern since childhood but tried not to let it affect me. Mom always insisted Penelope needed extra attention because she was delicate, whatever that meant. Last year, when Penelope wanted to move to a trendier apartment, I helped with the down payment, using half of my retirement savings. I also cover portions of her utilities and her premium internet package. It strains my budget significantly, but I was raised believing family supports family. Olivia could easily pay for my entire utilities if she wanted, Penelope announced during Dad's company dinner last week. It's not like she has any real expenses. My fork froze midway to my mouth. Penelope, I'm already stretching myself thin. I can't cover all your bills. Mom shook her head disapprovingly. Olivia, your sister is trying to build her brand. You could cut back on your so-called self-care expenses. What self-care expenses? I asked, genuinely confused. I work 12-hour shifts caring for sick children. I barely have time for myself. Dad joined in, his voice stern. Your sister needs more support than you're giving her. This family business depends on appearances, and your sister understands that. These conversations repeat almost weekly. No matter how much I contribute, it's never sufficient. Meanwhile, Penelope spends lavishly on designer clothes and cosmetic procedures while I carefully budget every dollar. When I point this out, my parents dismiss me as jealous and petty. Last Tuesday became my breaking point. I arrived home with a splitting migraine after a grueling shift in the pediatric oncology ward. One of my young patients had taken a turn for the worse, and I was emotionally drained. Just as I sat down to review some patient charts, my doorbell rang insistently. Emergency favor, Penelope exclaimed when I opened the door, already strutting into my apartment. I need you to look over my latest health and wellness script for my followers. My collagen supplement sponsor needs approval by morning. You'll proofread it for medical accuracy, right? Thanks, sis. She thrust her laptop at me and was gone before I could object. I sighed, opening the document to find a scientifically inaccurate promotion for an overpriced supplement. Penelope, I can't endorse this, I texted her. These health claims are completely unfounded and potentially harmful. Just fix it then. She replied immediately. That's what you're good for, right? Medical stuff. My temples throbbed harder. I have my own work tonight, and I'm not comfortable putting my nursing expertise behind these claims. This triggered a barrage of increasingly angry texts that culminated in, I've already been paid for this. If you don't help, I'll tell Dad you're sabotaging my business opportunities. I felt my patience snap. Enough. I typed back. I will not compromise my professional ethics for your sponsorship deals. If you want my medical expertise, you need to respect it. Is that clear? Her response was immediate, whatever. I'll just say you reviewed it anyway. If you falsely claim I endorsed this, I'll contact the supplement company myself to correct the record, I warned. When she called 20 minutes later, her voice was venomous. How dare you threaten my income stream? You think being a nurse gives you the right to control my content? I could report you to your licensing board for this. I was stunned. Report me? For refusing to endorse medically inaccurate information? I don't want to hear your excuses. We're done. She hung up abruptly. My phone rang again shortly after. It was Mom. Olivia, how could you treat your sister this way when she's working so hard on her career? We raised you better than this. I tried explaining professional ethics, but she wouldn't listen. That night, staring at my ceiling, I wondered when protecting my professional integrity made me the family villain. Little did I know things would get dramatically worse. A week later, Penelope called bubbling with excitement. She'd met someone named Ethan at a networking event. He was 28, the CEO of a medical tech startup, and incredibly well-connected. I felt genuinely happy for her, maybe having someone new in her life would redirect her focus away from exploiting mine. Over the next 2 months, Penelope's relationship with Ethan consumed her entirely. She constantly texted photos of them at exclusive restaurants, shared snippets of his business calls, and forwarded articles about young tech entrepreneurs. Initially, I was pleased for her, but my happiness evaporated when I realized her new relationship's implications for me. I need you to review these medical device specifications tonight. Ethan's meeting potential investors tomorrow, Penelope demanded one Wednesday evening. It was the fourth technical document she'd sent that week. I can't, Penelope. I'm on call tonight and already exhausted from a 12-hour shift. Please, it'll just take an hour. He really needs medical validation for his pitch. The documents were always problematic, filled with exaggerated claims and questionable science, but I reluctantly reviewed them because refusing meant enduring guilt trips from both Penelope and our parents. This became our new pattern. Penelope would send increasingly complex medical documents with impossible deadlines, promising it was just this once, then immediately request more. The technical errors grew more concerning with each document. One proposal suggested a monitoring device that would miss critical symptoms. Another outlined treatment protocols that contradicted established medical practice. After 8 weeks of providing unpaid medical consultation, I was mentally and physically drained. My patient care was suffering, my professional reputation was at risk, and I had no personal life. Something needed to change. Dad's company dinner seemed like the appropriate time to address the situation. Penelope was radiant, having just returned from a business retreat with Ethan. Executives mingled around us as we sat at the elegantly set table. Penelope, I said carefully, measuring my words, I'm happy about your relationship with Ethan, but we need to discuss these medical consultations. My sister's smile tightened. What about them? They're becoming too frequent, and the claims are increasingly problematic. I have ethical obligations as a nurse. Perhaps Ethan should hire a proper medical consultant? Penelope's expression hardened. You're just being difficult. You don't want to see me succeed. That's not what I said. You're jealous, she hissed, leaning across the table. You're jealous that I found someone ambitious while you waste your talent changing bedpans. I glanced at our parents, expecting them to intervene given the professional setting. Instead, Mom nodded in agreement. Olivia, your sister finally has a real opportunity for success. Can't you support the family business? Mom whispered harshly. Dad frowned. This company's medical division needs innovation. Period. I felt physically ill. Are you serious? I've been helping for years. I contributed to her down payment, cover her bills, and I've reviewed countless documents. I just need professional boundaries. Boundaries? Penelope scoffed. Try building a business empire. Oh wait, you can't even manage to advance beyond basic nursing. That was my breaking point. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. I'm done. Find someone else to validate your questionable medical claims. I quit. I walked out, ignoring Penelope's indignant gasps and my father's stern calls to return. For the first time in years, I felt the weight of compromise lifting from my shoulders, despite the anger burning in my chest. 3 days later, Penelope appeared at my door clutching a stack of medical documents. I need you to review Ethan's investor presentation. The meeting's tomorrow and it's crucial. No, I said firmly, blocking the doorway. I told you I'm done providing free medical consultation. Her face contorted with indignation. You can't be serious. The documents are already here, how is he supposed to validate his claims? That's for him to figure out. He should hire a proper medical consultant. She tried to push the papers toward me, but I stood my ground. You're trying to sabotage my relationship, she cried. You're jealous he's revolutionizing medicine while you're just changing bandages. I closed the door and locked it. I could hear her pounding and shouting about family loyalty, but I turned up my music and ignored it. Eventually, she left. The barrage began that evening, first Penelope calling, then Mom, then Dad. I let them all go to voicemail. My father's message was particularly cutting. You're jeopardizing the family's medical business connections, Olivia. Prepare for the consequences. Despite our confrontation, I continued transferring money for Penelope's housing expenses. It felt like the final connection to my family, and I wasn't ready to sever it completely. Weeks passed. The messages gradually ceased. I focused on my patients, joined a meditation group, and even accepted dinner invitations from a doctor at the hospital. For the first time in years, I prioritized my own well-being. After nearly 3 months of silence, my phone displayed a message from Mom. Walter's 30th company anniversary dinner tomorrow night at Rothwell's, 7 p.m. Penelope has an announcement. Your presence is expected. I hesitated, but curiosity prevailed. Perhaps enough time had passed for tensions to ease. Maybe Penelope was ready to acknowledge my professional boundaries. I replied with a simple "I'll be there," and spent the next day anxious about what awaited me. When I arrived at the upscale restaurant, everyone was already seated: Mom, Dad, Penelope, several company executives, and a polished man in an expensive suit who I assumed was Ethan. He stood when I approached. "You must be Olivia, the pediatric nurse. I've heard about your work," he said with a practiced smile. I doubted anything he'd heard was complimentary, but I smiled professionally. "Nice to meet you, Ethan." The dinner proceeded cordially. Ethan seemed knowledgeable, occasionally directing medical questions to other executives when they arose. Penelope was radiant, constantly touching Ethan's arm. Perhaps things had genuinely improved. After appetizers, my father stood and clinked his glass. Tonight we celebrate 30 years of Walker Medical Supplies, and our future looks brighter than ever. Penelope rose dramatically, clutching Ethan's hand. "We have wonderful news," she announced. "Ethan and I are engaged. And more importantly, we'll be launching a revolutionary pediatric medical device division together." The table erupted in applause. Dad embraced Ethan while Mom dabbed her eyes. "Congratulations," I said sincerely. "When's the official announcement?" "In 4 months at the Medical Innovation Conference," Ethan answered. "We've secured a keynote presentation." "That's wonderful news," I replied. "I wish you both success." Penelope's smile suddenly turned cold. "There's something else, Olivia." Her tone made my stomach tighten. "The presentation will highlight our family's medical expertise. But you won't be included in our team." The table fell silent. I felt physically struck. "Excuse me?" "You heard me. This opportunity is for people who prioritize family success. You made your position clear when you refused to support our medical innovations." I looked to my parents, expecting them to intervene. Mom studied her wine glass. Dad shook his head. "Your sister's right, Olivia. You've chosen your path." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Years of financial support, countless hours of professional consultation, and all my contributions to the family meant nothing because I'd finally established professional boundaries. Without another word, I gathered my belongings, placed my company credit card on the table, and walked out. No one called after me. That evening, I made a calculated choice. I blocked their numbers and removed them from my social networks. Yet I couldn't bring myself to cancel the automatic transfer covering Penelope's housing expenses. Life continued forward. I immersed myself in my nursing career, bonded with colleagues in my meditation group, and began dating a pediatrician named James who worked in neurology. I was creating a life centered on my own values rather than my sister's demands, and the freedom was exhilarating. Occasionally, I checked Penelope's professional profiles. She regularly posted updates about the upcoming medical conference, innovation awards, investor meetings, promotional photoshoots. Not once did she attempt to contact me. My parents remained equally silent. 4 months passed swiftly. The Medical Innovation Conference was scheduled for Saturday, and I had planned a quiet weekend catching up on medical journals and sleep. James had invited me to a medical charity gala, but I declined. Despite my attempts to convince myself otherwise, I knew the conference would dominate my thoughts. Friday evening, while reviewing patient charts, someone knocked on my door. Peering through the peephole, I was stunned to see Penelope standing in my hallway. I cautiously opened the door. "Penelope, what brings you here?" She pushed past me into my apartment. "We need to talk." She looked uncharacteristically disheveled. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her normally immaculate appearance had given way to a hastily assembled outfit. "What's happening?" I asked, maintaining professional distance. "Your conference presentation is tomorrow. Shouldn't you be at a preparation dinner?" "That's precisely why I'm here." She claimed my sofa without invitation. "I need you to present the medical validation portion of our keynote tomorrow." I stared at her, certain I'd misunderstood. "You want me to provide medical credibility after explicitly excluding me from your team?" "Listen, the presentation needs medical endorsement. Ethan's claims are being questioned by potential investors, and the medical consultant we hired backed out yesterday citing ethical concerns." "Then hire another consultant. There's no time. Besides, your family, you understand the technology." I laughed incredulously. Penelope, you literally told me I wasn't welcome on your team. You can't suddenly change your position. You're exaggerating that situation, she dismissed with a wave. I was stressed, okay? But this is critical. If you don't help, we'll have to present without medical validation, and the investors will walk. That sounds like a business problem, not an Olivia problem. Her expression hardened. Fine. If you won't do it for me, do it for Dad's company. Think about all those patients who could benefit. Dad's company hasn't acknowledged my existence in 4 months. They didn't even recognize my professional certification renewal. If you refuse, I'll make sure everyone knows how you sabotaged a medical innovation out of spite. You know they'll believe me. She smiled, confident in her manipulation. I felt the familiar anger rising, but carefully controlled my expression. What time is the presentation? I asked neutrally. Penelope's face lit up with triumph. The keynote starts at 11 a.m., so arrive by 9:30 for prep. Everything should conclude by 7 p.m. I'll text if anything changes. Sure, I said flatly. She stood, suddenly energized. I knew you'd come through, sis. This means everything for our family's future. After Penelope left, I acted swiftly. I called my nursing director and requested emergency deployment with our hospital's disaster relief program. I had accumulated significant volunteer hours and was pre-approved for medical missions. When she enthusiastically approved my participation, I immediately opened my laptop. Within an hour, I had confirmed my placement on a pediatric medical team heading to a hurricane-devastated region in Puerto Rico. Our flight departed at 5:30 a.m. the following morning. I'd always wanted to join international relief efforts but never pursued it, partly because I was too occupied supporting Penelope. The irony wasn't lost on me. I packed efficiently, setting an alarm for 3 a.m. to meet the hospital transport. As I organized my medical supplies, conflicting emotions washed over me. Guilt surfaced. I'd been conditioned my entire life to prioritize my sister's demands. But beneath that familiar weight emerged something powerful: purpose, freedom, and the profound satisfaction of honoring my medical oath rather than family manipulation. I slept intermittently that night, half expecting Penelope to somehow detect my plan and appear to prevent my departure. Instead, my alarm sounded without incident, and by sunrise, I was on a medical transport plane heading south, my phone switched to emergency contacts only. The flight nurse handed me a medical briefing as we reached cruising altitude. Ready to make a difference? She asked with understanding in her eyes. I reviewed the patient manifest and gazed at the clouds below. Yes, I replied. The real difference I was meant to make. The relief zone was exactly where I needed to be. Our medical station was established in a school gymnasium, treating dozens of injured children daily. I spent my first day triaging young patients, stabilizing critical cases, and comforting terrified families. For the first time in years, my skills were being used where they mattered most. I kept my phone on emergency mode, knowing what awaited me when I restored normal service. Penelope would have arrived at my apartment around 9:30 a.m., laptop and presentation materials in hand, probably already dressed in her conference outfit. She would have knocked, then pounded, then called repeatedly. By 10 a.m., she would have been panicking. By 10:30, livid. The next evening, after a 14-hour shift saving 3 children from respiratory failure, curiosity compelled me to check my messages. I sat on a cot in our makeshift staff quarters, and as I sipped water and documented patient notes, I restored my phone service. It immediately flooded with notifications: 15 missed calls from Penelope, 9 from Mom, 6 from Dad, and dozens of increasingly frantic texts. From Penelope at 9:40 a.m., where are you? The conference center security won't let us in without our full team. From Penelope at 10:05 a.m., this is completely unprofessional, Olivia. Our presentation slot is approaching. From Penelope at 10:42 a.m., I can't believe you'd sabotage our medical innovation launch. From Mom at 11:15 a.m., your sister's investors are leaving. Is this really how you want to impact patients? From Penelope at 12:30 p.m., you've completely destroyed our presentation. Ethan's claims were questioned, and Dad's company looks medically incompetent. From Dad at 2:45 p.m., this is beyond unprofessional, Olivia. Your nursing career won't recover from this. The final message from Penelope arrived at 8:52 p.m., you've betrayed this family completely. Don't attempt to contact any of us again. You're no longer welcome in our medical circles. I should have felt devastated, but instead felt profoundly at peace. They had excommunicated me, not the reverse. The decision was theirs, not mine. I opened my banking app and canceled the recurring transfer for Penelope's housing expenses. Ethan could support her medical ambitions now. I switched my phone back to emergency mode and returned to treating injured children. Later that evening, while documenting patient cases, my friend Abigail called. I almost declined, but Abigail had always been supportive. She worked at a neighboring hospital and remained disconnected from my family's situation. Olivia, are you all right? I heard there was chaos at the medical conference. My colleague who attended sent me messages. Sounds like the presentation was a disaster. That's putting it mildly, Abigail explained. Penelope had to proceed without medical validation since you weren't there? Your parents tried to provide credibility during the presentation, but they couldn't answer basic medical questions. Ethan claimed his device could monitor pediatric vital signs with 99% accuracy, but couldn't explain the testing methodology. I tried to maintain professional composure but couldn't suppress a knowing expression. During the investor reception, Abigail continued, their prototype malfunctioned completely. The worst moment came when Ethan attempted to demonstrate the device on a volunteer and it displayed readings that would indicate cardiac arrest in a healthy person. The chief medical officer from Morrison Healthcare stood up and questioned the entire premise of their research. My God, I murmured, conflicted between professional concern and vindication. One senior investor, a former physician, said something like, perhaps you should consult actual medical professionals before seeking funding. The entire room went silent. Penelope blames you entirely, naturally. Of course she does, I sighed. It couldn't possibly be that their claims need scientific validation, or that they should have hired a legitimate medical consultant weeks ago instead of assuming I'd compromise my ethics. Exactly. I mainly called to ensure you're okay. And truthfully, I believe you made the right professional choice. They've exploited your expertise for years. After speaking with Abigail, I redirected my focus to our relief mission. I performed emergency procedures on children with traumatic injuries, coordinated medical evacuations, trained local healthcare workers, and implemented pediatric triage protocols. When I finally returned home, I was exhausted but fulfilled in ways I hadn't experienced in years. There were no further communications from my family. I hadn't anticipated any, yet the finality of the silence carried a faint sting. 3 weeks elapsed. I immersed myself in my nursing work, and my director noticed the transformation in my dedication and clinical presence. She requested a meeting one Thursday afternoon. Olivia, I've been extraordinarily impressed by your performance since returning from Puerto Rico, Joshua said. Your pediatric trauma interventions saved multiple lives, and your training program for new nurses has transformed our department. I'd like to offer you the position of pediatric clinical specialist. I was momentarily speechless. Thank you, Joshua. I'm honestly not sure how to respond. Say yes. It includes a 20% compensation increase and the opportunity to develop our new pediatric critical care unit. You've more than earned this. With my improved salary, I could finally afford a better living situation. I found a comfortable condo in a modern building with a wellness center and community garden. Moving day brought mixed emotions. I felt excited about my new home but couldn't help reflecting on my family's absence during this milestone. Then, during a rainy Wednesday evening while organizing my medical reference books, Abigail called again. Hey, friend, I answered. How are you? I'm well, but I have some Walker family updates. Thought you might want to hear. What's happening with Penelope? Is she all right? Despite everything, I still cared about her welfare. Professionally, she's functioning, but personally, she's struggling. She and Ethan constantly clash over the medical startup's direction. He wasn't prepared for the regulatory hurdles, and Penelope refuses to scale back their claims. She's been pressuring your father to invest more company resources every week so they can have emergency development meetings to salvage their reputation. I sighed heavily. That's not addressing the fundamental issue. Their product needs legitimate clinical validation, not more marketing spin. Precisely. Your father's company stock has dropped 15%, and your mother had a stress-related health scare after investors started demanding documentation. The entire situation is unraveling. Part of me felt vindicated, but predominantly I felt concerned for my father's legitimate medical supply business and its patients. None of this damage was necessary. The problem stemmed from the adults ignoring proper medical protocols and ethical guidelines. I hope they reconsider their approach, I said, for the patient's sake. Have you thought about reconciliation? Abigail asked gently. I considered the question carefully. I'm not sure. They would need to recognize how they exploited my professional expertise, and I question whether they're capable of that level of self-awareness. But I do miss the potential our family had to genuinely help people. I understand completely. For what it's worth, I believe you made the ethically sound choice. Sometimes professional integrity must come before family pressure. After ending our call, I prepared a cup of herbal tea and settled on my new balcony, watching ambulance lights move through the city streets. I reflected on my sister and parents, about the pediatric patients at my father's partner hospitals whom I could no longer directly support. There was melancholy in this reflection, but absolutely no regret. I'd spent years as the family's unacknowledged medical resource, giving my expertise freely and receiving no professional respect in return. Breaking away had been essential for my ethical integrity and well-being. Perhaps someday they would recognize what they had squandered. Perhaps they would reach out with genuine understanding. Until such time, I would continue building my medical career according to my professional values. I had meaningful work that saved children's lives, a comfortable home, colleagues who respected my expertise, and most importantly, I had preserved my integrity, stronger in my convictions and more dedicated to patient care than ever before. I raised my teacup in a silent toast to my future patients. Whatever challenges arose, I was prepared to face them with unwavering medical ethics.